to OverBoost 21. OverBoost is a podcast interview series featuring discussions with speedrunners about their history in speedrunning and gaming and the runs they're passionate about. I am your host, PMC Trilogy. With me today is Amber. Amber, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me on the show.
I always like to start these off with some recent events, and recently you did something I thought was really cool, which was that you were featured in an Ars Technica video about, it was the SNES Rainbow Road Track in Mario Kart 8 DX. And I was curious how that came together. Were you a part of a group that pitched that to Ars, or did a writer at Ars reach out to you?
So the way that the connection with Ars Technica happened was through OverBoost, actually. So Ars Technica had was making 2 episodes of their 30 people play show, and OverBoost and Cosmic were in the first one for Super Mario Bros. And they were looking for somebody to represent like the speedrunner side of Mario Kart, and Auth recommended me, and then they contacted me, and then I did an interview with them, and they put together the video, and now it's out. Yeah,
so for folks who haven't seen, any of these videos that we're going to be mentioning during this interview, you'll be able to find links to in the podcast or video description. But to give an idea of what the video series is that they just sort of have a bunch of people of various skill levels, sit down and play a game. And so in this particular example, it was Mario Kart 8 DX, and they were playing the SNES Rainbow Road Track. And then, of course, they had, you providing information about, some of the techniques and some of the specific approaches to how to play the track, and also to, some of your gameplay footage was also used in that, right? I assume that you were...
Yeah, they did. Yeah, right. They used some of my footage. They had me record a time trial of it, and I did the time trial at 200cc, but they ran the 30 people play tournament, or not tournament, like their little trial at 150cc. So the footage is a little bit different, and my strategies were a little different, but the routes that you use are roughly the same. They're not identical. We'll go more in depth in that later in the podcast, I think you said.
Sure, yeah. I imagine some of that, some of those things like global cycles and stuff like that, we can talk more about later. But that was cool.
It was really fun.
I did not know, this is me not doing enough research beforehand. I didn't realize that was actually part of a larger video series. So to see that, that linked back, and of course, OverBoost, very cool. Someone who's popped up, being talked about on this podcast before. I think a while back I had someone on talking about Bubsy 3D, and of course,
oh nice,
where you mentioned Bubsy 3D, someone is mentioning OverBoost. But let's go back in history and really get to the foundation for you and gaming. Where does gaming start for you? Is that something you picked up from particular friends or family?
So I think that me and gaming, just in general, it came from my dad a lot. My first console was a Super Nintendo, and if I remember correctly, my first game was Link to the Past. My dad had a bunch of SNES games, and he had like a booklet that had all the codes that you would enter to get to later levels and things, and so I would get ahead to the later levels that I couldn't beat using my dad's codes that he used when he played the games when he was younger. So that was fun. So games were kind of a way to connect with my dad a lot when I was younger. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's neat. So that the literally the hardware was all stuff that was his when he was a kid.
Yeah, it was. Well, not when he was a kid, but he had a Super Nintendo at some point, and it just stuck around. And we never had an N64, so I kind of just kept playing SNES games for a while. And then the GameCube came out, and I played a lot of GameCube games. And I just kind of stuck with Nintendo throughout a lot of it, and I kind of grew up around Nintendo.
So you feel like for you, you just ended up sort of sticking that. So things like, the GameCube, the Wii, and of course now the Switch.
Yep.
Now,
don't forget the Wii U. Don't forget the Wii U.
No, that's fair. That's fair. The Wii U, the Wii U is something I think I owned at the time because of Smash, and then only later on have I sort of come back to it to actually play some single player games. I'm like, oh, Wind Waker on the Wii U. This is a lot of fun, actually. So no, don't forget about the Wii U. It was interesting.
Yeah, I didn't get it when it released, but I got it like as a birthday gift to myself a little bit later, and that's when I picked up Mario Kart, and because it was originally for the Wii U, and tons of other games like Splatoon. I think Splatoon was actually the reason why I bought the Wii U.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of diehard Splatoon fans out there for sure. I wanted to ask, I always like to try and get a sense of the point at which someone really starts to take possession or sort of ownership of their gaming hobby. You had mentioned, that your dad had this NES still around, and I would probably guess, the GameCube might have been like a holiday gift or something. Is there a point where you really sort of like, oh no, this is my Wii U, or maybe even, more recently, this is my Switch? Was there a certain point where you sort of take ownership rather than being like a family unit?
Probably halfway through the Wii life cycle, when I started like buying games for myself, and I started like taking gaming as a hobby a little bit more seriously, and like I bought like extra controllers and like nicer controllers and my own games, and eventually I bought my own Wii U. So that was the first console that I bought for myself. But I think at that point I was the only person playing on our family's Wii. I was the only person playing on our family's GameCube. And my dad also was into computer games, and I like used his old computer to play crappy Flash games, and eventually I had my own computer, but that was after I moved out. So no, I think I probably started taking ownership and like getting more serious into gaming as a hobby probably right around the time I became a teenager.
No,
like
that's about
yeah.
right. Yeah, I can definitely. I feel like if I had to peg the dad, I would also probably do a similar thing where it's like, like 14, 15, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I also like to ask, so much of the focus in speedrunning is going to be necessarily on games that are either single player, co-op, or things like that. And that often sort of doesn't show the runner's full gaming history because, especially in the past 2 decades, multiplayer gaming, online gaming is huge. I think I feel like almost every guest I ask, like, were you into multiplayer gaming? And it's like over 50%, just like, oh yeah, I played tons of League, which is wild to me. Do you have any things like that where, it sounds like maybe Splatoon was one of that, but, other maybe things like League, MOBAs, first-person shooters, or anything like that?
I was pretty into the Splatoon 1 competitive scene. I organized tournaments in the Splatoon 1 competitive scene, actually, and I ran a tournament series on Sundays. That actually, I don't think there are any VODs anymore, but the Twitch channel still exists. I ran a Splatoon tournament called Monsoon every Sunday for a while. That was a lot of fun, but I didn't pick up Splatoon 2 when it came out, and I kind of left. Multiplayer games, I honestly haven't really been a huge multiplayer game player in general. Like, I played Splatoon online, but yeah, I don't know. I don't play Mario Kart online. I play a lot of roguelikes, single player stuff. I'm not too big into online games.
No, that's fair. I personally, I can relate to that because I'm extremely hot and cold. Like I've gone for years sometimes, and then be like Rocket League and Overwatch, and then PUBG, and then now I'm back in like, why would you play multiplayer games? Someone comes in the stream and says, "Streamer, when are you playing Among Us?" And I'm saying, never.
I do not like social deduction games.
Oh yeah, no, especially that.
No, they're not for me. Among Us, not for me.
2 years in high school, I had friends who just did nothing but play Mafia, like just regular in-person Mafia, and I was like, well, that's it. I've filled up my quota for my whole life now. Go ahead.
I'm trying to think. I just lost the thing I was going to say, so never mind.
That's fair. Maybe we'll find it again. But actually, so you already answered. I was going to ask, since Mario Kart 8 is going to be such a focus, I was going to ask if you do much playing online, because we're going to discuss more of like the run itself and your approach to running later on.
Oh, I remembered.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, do it.
Yeah, no, I don't play online Mario Kart much. What I was going to say was I did used to play Overwatch. I got to like platinum rank in the first 2 seasons, but then I stopped playing.
That's extremely fair. That's kind of I don't think I ever ranked well in that game, but I had fun, then I stopped having fun, and then then you stopped.
Pretty much, yeah. It just kind of got samey, and then I stopped.
Well, let's talk about speedrunning then.
Yeah, let's talk about speedrunning.
I am always very curious. How did you first learn about speedrunning?
I first learned about speedrunning from, so I don't remember the exact reason why, but I was really a big fan of Bastion. Bastion is one of my favorite games of all time by Supergiant Games, and I found the Bastion speedrun by Vooligen at AGDQ 14, I think it was, maybe SGDQ 14. The any percent run that first showed off using the scroll wheel to duplicate items, and it blew my mind, and that was the first time I had seen speedrunning and the first time I had seen people using glitches and exploits in games to like progress faster. And I kept watching more GDQ VODs, and then I caught the next one that I could live, and I started watching Twitch, and I started speedrunning in 2015.
What was the game that pulled you over the line? What game made you sit down and say, I'm going to do this myself now?
So actually it was Super Mario Galaxy, because to name drop more people,
please.
I was watching a lot of Pants and I was watching a lot of Valu 111. And they're both Galaxy runners at the time, at least they were. And I was like, I'm going to learn Galaxy because I want to do that. That looks really fun. And I'm also going to stream because it looks like they're having a lot of fun, and that sounds like fun. And then I realized that learning Galaxy was going to take a lot of time, and I still really wanted to do that streaming thing too. So I would speedrun an easier game and stream it, and then in my off time I would learn Galaxy, and then eventually I could stream Galaxy. And so I picked Mario Kart, and then I never learned Galaxy.
I was gonna say I do have your speedrun.com profile up before me, and I was like, there is no Galaxy on here.
No, there is not.
That's very interesting. That I mean, it is Galaxy's along around. There's a lot going on there. So, but that's interesting that it led you from one to the other.
I actually do know the route through the fountain, but that's it.
That's very, very fair. All right, so I already asked you what the first game that you speedran was, and it was the one you said. Okay, let me make sure I got that right, because it wasn't Galaxy. You thought about Galaxy. You were working on Galaxy.
Galaxy is what pushed me over the line, but Mario Kart was my first game. Yeah.
Okay, and at that point, that would have been Mario Kart U.
Yeah, Mario Kart for Wii U.
Okay, gotcha. All right, that makes sense. All right, I want to get some takes here. I want to get some takes about your catalog of speed games.
Gosh.
I think this one is going to be easy. I think this is a softball. What's your favorite speed game?
My favorite speed game out of this list, Mario Kart 8.
Okay. And then what's your of all the ones that you've completed a run of? Doesn't have to be on your profile. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be written proof.
Sure.
What's your least favorite speed run that you've done a run of?
Ooh, that's tough. The game or my run of the game?
I would say your experience of it. I mean, the thing I'm looking for is not so much to be like, I don't like the community or I don't like the game or something, but just, you didn't enjoy some element. It was too random or too inconsistent, or, it doesn't jive with what you like in a speed game.
Sure. I don't have it up here, but I did a single player all boards run of Super Mario Party, and that one was really boring. At the end of the day, I like Mario Party runs because they're like optimizing RNG and optimizing like how what's the fastest slow thing that I can get, right? That's Mario Party, but unfortunately, Super Mario Party is so slow that even speedrunning it still feels like you're just playing the game casually. So that was kind of a letdown. But I think as far as like gameplay wise, it would either be I tried doing Splatoon 1 any percent, and that just was a mess, and I was in tears trying to skip World 4 because it has like this really hard skip, and I had never done it, and I spent 45 minutes trying to do it, and then I finally got it, and I just started crying. It was bad. You can't find a video of that anywhere.
I mean, that's stressful. That's, especially when you're like, I just need to complete this game. Like, I just need to finish this run, and you're getting hung up for 45 minutes. That's a ton.
It was this group of speedrunners who played competitive Splatoon. They made an SRL competitive team, and they all were like, we're all going to do a Splatoon any percent run in a Discord call together as like a fun thing. I wasn't on the team, but I was in the Discord server. And yeah, so we all did it, and I didn't get last, but I was the only one who cried. And the other bad run that I have, just like gameplay wise, I joined the Carrera Rat, the Kirby Air Ride, all rides, all tracks thing, which is doing every track in the game with every car in Kirby Air Ride in the racing mode. And I didn't play that game. I don't know why I decided to do that, and it ended up being like 3 hours slower than like an optimized time. But I did it, so that one's probably the one with the worst gameplay that you can find.
I mean, if you finish a run, I feel like that puts you ahead of a lot of other folks. Sometimes that first run is always the most stressful thing.
Yeah.
All right, one more take, and this should be a little more gentler. Is a game that you would like to speedrun, but you haven't gotten around to it, and that might be because you just don't have time, or it doesn't really fit with what you're doing right now.
Well, the easy answer is Galaxy. But a better answer, I think, would be Cluster Truck, actually. I've wanted to run Cluster Truck for a really long time, and it's just never happened.
Now, would you be... I'm curious with Cluster Truck, because I've seen a few runs of that, and there's some... I feel like that's a game that has... is there a particular category in that you'd be running? Would it be just like the regular base game, or...
Yeah, just the okay. any percent or all levels or whatever. I don't know.
Okay, no, well, that game was also, I feel like it was one of the early games to have like chat integration and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I was curious because I think Hanky was who I saw.
Chat percent is a thing.
Mm-hmm, right.
I did a playthrough of it with the chat integration. That was really fun.
Cool. No, that's a neat game. And also it's I don't know, it's one of those like first person movement games which I feel like are always very, very fun to watch.
It's one of those first-person movement games where if you move diagonally, it's faster than... If you strafe diagonally, it's faster than just holding W. So you have to, like, get used to... There are tons of PC games where if you strafe with W and A or W and D and, like, angle your perspective and stuff, that's faster than just moving straight forward with W. Cluster Truck has that, too.
Yeah, that's a classic. I definitely recommend for anyone, like literally any era of gaming. Like Cluster Truck, that's a relatively more recent game. It's like a 2016 game, but you can go back, especially late 90s, early 2000s. There's a ton that are like that. Like I think I picked up a PlayStation 1 launch game last year, and I was like, I wonder if strafing and going forward at the same time. Of course, it makes you go faster. Always check the diagonal movement.
It's so good. Yeah, you check for that. You check to see if using the analog stick left and D-pad left is twice left. Sometimes that happens. That's always fun.
Yeah, the sum of the movements. It works.
Yeah.
So you mentioned already a little bit when we were talking about your history with speedrunning that when you made that decision to do the runs yourself, to learn Galaxy and then also to run Mario Kart. That at the same time you were watching other streamers do that, and that accordingly you were streaming yourself. Now the past 2 weeks you happened to be streaming during my work hours, which is always good for me because that means I get to put on very chill, good speedruns while I'm doing my day job. And,
nice.
And it was very good. I turned the stream on and immediately, like, it was the one day where it was like, yes, all the leftist politics. Thank you. Let's go.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, really.
It's one of these podcasts. I can say this stuff.
Oh yeah,
good.
no. If you want to let out a hearty, ACAB or whatever, you are 100% welcome to do that on this podcast for sure.
Oh yeah, now or save it to the end, or
it's up to you. If you want to
save
interject,
it to the end.
Well,
yeah, okay, yeah. Just every once in a while, I'll just like say one at like the start of okay.
Yeah, do it. But what I wanted to ask was, there's an element of, some of these words I use because that's how we communicate, although there's a part of me that still dies every time I hear the word content. But in terms of, formalizing the stream, things like having a schedule, have a nice overlay, having an audience, do you feel like there are any major points for you where you're like, oh, hey, I have some people watching me play Mario Kart, let me get alerts and things like that, or would I guess if I really wanted to simplify it, would you say that there was a point when you started to develop an audience that prompted you to, make your stream more, impressive?
Black Lives Matter. So I think that probably back in like 2016, 2017, when things started to be like consistently in like the teens, and like I had a Discord server and I had a community, and like I've always kind of tried to keep it like a level of professionalism where it's like I'm taking this seriously, but I'm also just a person and I'm a human being, and you have to bear with me because I'm not a full-time streamer and I'm not a big streamer. I'm gonna take this as seriously as I can take it, and I've always kind of tried to keep that attitude. Recently though, like since SGDQ Online happened, I definitely noticed that my audience got bigger, and I tried to take things a little bit more seriously. I've always really struggled with keeping a schedule and keeping consistency, but I've been working really hard at that recently, and I think it's paying off.
Yeah, no, as anecdotal evidence of how I came to hear about you, I think I had seen you a lot. I lurk in Brian Nado's Discord, and so I had seen you posting in the Speedrun channel there, about Mario Kart runs, and then I was like, oh, you're running at SGDQ, and that really tuned in at that point. I think I probably followed you on Twitter around then because I was like, oh, cool, this is neat. Someone with Bri. Bri's always excellent indicator. I feel like I can trust them.
Yeah.
And so
Bri's
that was
great.
cool. That's really, really, really cool to see that develop and to really, get a boost from that. Do you feel like you have so you're saying right now, you got some more traction from SGDQ. Do you feel like you are going to continue to push that side of things or do you feel like you're still going to, keep it sequestered to a part of your life and not worry about things like, I don't know, partner push or something like that?
I'll be honest, a partner push is something I've been considering, but I'm not there yet. Right away after SGDQ Online when I was streaming, I was like, maybe, but after it's been about a month now, and things are starting to settle. At first you get the people who are I just want to check it out, and then after a month now I'm starting to figure out, okay, so I have I have a solid base of new regulars now, and I think at this point I want to keep taking it seriously. I think I'm still gonna stick with the same attitude that I've always had, which is I'm gonna take it as far as I can take it. And right now I'm not working, so I can take it pretty far if I try really hard. That's kind of what I'm trying to do.
Cool. No, I mean, hopefully, obviously I'm not going to pry into your living situation, but, taking the time you have and making the best of it is, certainly what you got to do. Time management is hard. And,
yeah,
that is true. And the other thing too is also just this is a general comment for listeners. Respect folks' time management. You never know what else stuff they got going on in their lives, and so why they may or may not have a consistent schedule or how much they can stream. So always be mindful of what's going on with streamers. Speaking of what's going on with streamers, one thing I want to check in, especially because the game that we're going to be primarily discussing, Mario Kart 8 DX, is a game where you're making a lot of, I would say, I'm gonna say repetitive movements. Feel free to yell at me for saying that.
No, they're pretty repetitive, yeah.
And so the thing I want to ask, and I've been asking this of runners more and more, is do you have thoughts about long-term hand health or other things like posture? And do you take any steps right now to address that, to sort of engage in preventative measures?
Yeah. So healthcare and housing are both human rights. I do take a lot of care of my wrists. I'm very, very concerned about it. I played violin in high school, and I got carpal tunnel from that. And that never really goes away. And from playing video games, I've also probably developed tendonitis, and I do get the occasional swelling in my wrists when I game too hard, you know? But I have the same compression bands that Brian Otto uses, actually. And I do wrist stretches, during the stream, before the stream. I try to take good care of my wrists, and actually, I went to my general practitioner, my primary care doctor, the other couple weeks ago, and she recommended that I take like an anti-inflammatory, like an ibuprofen or an Aleve or something, before I stream, like before I start playing games, to prevent that, and that's been working really, really well.
That's interesting. You know, that's something I've heard in the context of like exercise more generally. You know, like I've often dealt with inflammatory issues in like my knees and stuff like that, and I would hear that kind of advice in regards to that. But it's really interesting to hear. Now, of course, you know, any sort of regular ibuprofen regime, check with your doctor. I'm not going to be like,
of course,
medical advice on the Speedrun interview podcast. But you know,
gosh, no.
I am extremely not a doctor. Holy crap! But you know, it's something, of course, you know, in terms of addressing things. You know, the thing I would stress for a listener more than anything else is just like pay attention to your body. You know, if there's pain, pay attention.
Yeah, if I can say something, don't be afraid to ask a doctor about something related to video games and hobbies. Like I was really worried about it because I have anxiety, and I was really just like anxious and kind of embarrassed about being like, I have wrist problems because I play video games. But really, at the end of the day, they don't care why you have wrist problems. They want to make those wrist problems go away.
Yeah, no, I think I would agree with that. I am, and I'll tell you too, I'm actually very fortunate to be friends with a bunch of people who ended up becoming doctors, and I can tell you there's a lot of nerdy doctors out there, and chances are you might even find one that plays video games. I have a longtime friend who messages me between shifts at the hospital all the time to be like, hey, PMC, how about video games? I'm like, I can tell you about video games. So, you know, definitely don't shy away from it, or don't feel like you can't talk about that sort of stuff with a doctor. So one more general speedrunning question before we start talking about Mario Kart 8 DX, and this is a pretty open-ended one, which is, I like to ask, do you feel like when it comes to speedrunning, do you feel that you have a particular mission statement or role in speedrunning? And when I say that, it's sort of like a mission statement, like a particular animating principle for why you do it, or role, meaning like someone who grinds out attempts or develops new tech or searches for glitches, things like that.
I think I want. Oh gosh, that is actually a really difficult question. Holy crap. It doesn't feel right to just say I want to go fast, because it definitely is a little bit more than that, right? Like, there's something that is just inherently rewarding about optimizing this sort of stuff. And yeah, with Mario Kart, it's just been the perfect outlet for me, because it's just a bunch of tiny micro optimizations, and that's the sort of itch that speedrunning scratches for me, I think, is all of the optimizations. But I'm not really one to develop new tech or find new routes. I'm definitely the type of person to take existing things and just grind them out. I've always joked that in the Mario Kart community, I'm kind of like our version of Nindide, in that I always do the hardest strats, even though they're not necessarily the most consistent.
Can you give me the context there? I don't think I recognize that name.
Nindide, the Super Mario Sunshine Runner.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'm not familiar with them, but the idea is that
he has the world record in Super Mario Sunshine, any percent, and I think he might have gotten 120 stars. Actually, I don't know, but he always went for these extremely inconsistent, extremely difficult strats that would save the most time, and he was just a grind monkey, and that attitude of just like do the hardest thing because it'll save the most time has always been kind of like a fun itch to scratch too. I shoot for more consistent things now, but I used to have that attitude. I definitely like taking what I know and trying to just optimize what I know, and then after a while going back and updating a bunch of strats at once.
No, I definitely respect that. I think what's good too about that is that the willingness to do hard things is there's sort of a, I would call it like a fuck around and find out sort of attitude, where it's like, well, you know what if I did this thing that everyone's, oh, this is too hard to do, like, and sometimes maybe you find out that it is more consistent than you think, and then maybe sometimes you really, you know, maybe you don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm. There are some good examples of that in Mario Kart 8. So
yeah, well, all right, let's transition into that now. In preparation for this interview, I watched two particular Mario Kart 8 DX videos. One of them was, of course, the SGDQ 2020 online 48 tracks relay, in which you know, you did commentary for the whole thing, but in particular, you did the bonus tracks segment of the relay. And I also went and watched your PB in bonus tracks, which I ended the 27:41.2, which I was apparently at the time was the fastest time, was the record time. And I want to say, that if you want to learn about like the basics as a viewer, as a speedrun, if you're like, I just want to watch Mario Kart runs, and you want to learn the tech, the commentary in that GDQ video is very good for explaining a lot of the techniques for drifting, the mini turbos, and some of the particular things in the tracks. Now, I'm hoping for this interview, you know, rather than necessarily you know, having you go into in-depth explanations on any of those things, I really wanted to get into sort of why you do what you do in terms of, you know, the specifics for this game, because with a game like this, and this is in OverBoost history, this is, I think, the first time I've been talking to someone doing a like a racing or driving game, and I think oftentimes in these racing and driving games, you have lots of things that you don't have in other types of genres, such as, you know, ghosts, time trials, like, you know, time trials within the game, things like that, which I think are essential to a racing game, but maybe not always present in other genres. And so since we're going to focus on, of course, what you run, I wanted to ask, you know, first off, maybe why 200cc instead of 150?
Sure. Well, first off, thank you for all the kind words about the runs, and the commentary and everything. That's really humbling. My PB is actually improved for bonus tracks. I have a 27:31 now. But to go back and answer your question, like speed and optimization and time trials and stuff, I started with 150 in the Wii U version of the game. And after a little while, well, actually, when the Switch version came out, I made the switch to 200cc. I'm not exactly sure. Actually, no, I am sure why. So I started with 150cc because I really liked fire hopping as a mechanic, and then they removed fire hopping, so I picked 200cc because it was faster. I wanted to switch to deluxe because it seemed pretty obvious that everybody was going to switch to deluxe. So, and I got the Switch and I got deluxe and everything.
So you were there right on the ground floor, because I imagine when you picked up the Wii U, you had said that, you know, you didn't buy a Wii U when it came out. Now, I don't know off the top of my head when Mario Kart for Wii U would have come out, but I assume that was a situation where you were coming into that scene kind of after the initial launch. Yeah,
definitely. Like before I had even entered the speedrunning scene for Mario Kart 8, Aeon Frodo had already done a run at AGDQ.
Oh, right, yeah, I remember that now, because you shouted out Aeon Frodo during your GDQ commentary.
She did her run at AGDQ 15, and I didn't start running Mario Kart until May 2015, I think. May or maybe October.
But then, of course, when the DX version came out, when did that
immediately?
That came. So you're immediately on top of that. Now, I think you already mentioned one difference was that there is actually a fair amount of important tech differences between the two games, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Jacob talked about that in our in the SGDQ run while I was running Yoshi's Circuit. But to briefly summarize the differences between the games, All of the carts and characters' stats were rebalanced. The physics of the game was adjusted slightly. When you hop up into the air and land on the ground, you lose a little bit of speed. That's an added change to make a specific bit of tech impossible. And then they added a third drift, so you could go from blue sparks to orange sparks, and then they added the purple sparks. And the tech that they got rid of and the hopping stuff is the reason why I switched to 200cc.
Okay, yeah, because I know I think the important thing I remember, again, going back to that very good commentary, was that one of the major things, because one of the things I was going to ask, I even before, watching the run, I can think of right off the top of my head, like, well, of course I'm going to ask, like, why this racer and why this kart and why that? And of course that question was answered in the commentary, but I thought it was very interesting that in these Mario Kart 8 DX runs, it sounds like, especially for the kart and the wheels and the glider, acceleration are privileged over top speed. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's cool. It's just but that was something that had changed between U and DX.
Yeah. To go into that, like, in the Wii U version, the thing that mattered was top speed because the tech that you were using was the thing that made you go faster than normal by using the tech was bringing you from that like boosted speed to your natural top speed. It was like bringing you back down. And by doing this tech, you would go back down slower. So having a higher top speed was the thing that mattered more. But since that whole entire like slowing down slower mechanic isn't in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the thing that matters more is being able to get as many mini turbos boosts as you can. And so while having a high top speed is important, having a high mini turbo is actually the super important stat. And acceleration and mini turbo are linked. Mini turbo isn't shown on the stat screen, so it looks like we're just prioritizing acceleration.
Right. No, that makes sense. All right. And well, another important why question is that besides, if we go and look at the Mario Kart 8 DX leaderboards, there's two important cutouts for subcategories. It looks like there's 150 versus 200, and the other one is, if you had asked me, I would have assumed everyone was running no items because that just kind of seems like what you would do. Now it does seem like there are people running the tracks with items, but why do you prefer no items?
It's a simple matter of RNG. Items used to be a lot more popular. No items is becoming more popular now as the game is maturing, I guess, in the speedrunning scene. Like, people are just trying to play more optimally, and a category with items just has so much RNG and lightning and blue shells and red shells and like everything that can mess you up. And it makes it so that you can't take the fastest possible lines and you can't take the fastest shortcuts because you have to worry about, what if I get hit by a lightning? I could fall off and that could lose me 10 plus seconds. That's not okay. So I have to go around this slower way so that I lose like maybe 2 seconds, but then if I get shocked, I'll only lose 6 instead of the full amount. And it's just, it ends up being really frustrating because your run is completely at the mercy of what RNG you get, and it turns into a grind for good RNG. But with no items, it's all skill, except for when computers run into you and the occasional bit of track geometry or the occasional track thing that's RNG dependent. But it's so much less. Like, no items, you're just going fast, and you have the ability to take all of these risky strats because there's no items that are ever going to hit you.
Yeah, like I think you already indicated, like, of course there's a skill to dealing with items and to managing that and to accounting for RNG. That's, some people love that. Some people love having, the wide field of RNG to deal with. But, as time goes on, if you really want to focus on optimizing, I think, as you said, no items is probably where most folks are going to end up. That leads me to, I think, probably my last major preference question. As I mentioned, the SGDQ 2020 video was a 48 tracks relay of 3 different groups of tracks. and you had done the bonus tracks. And in my time watching your stream these past 2 weeks, I've noticed that that's been kind of your focus, the bonus tracks category, 200cc no items. Why bonus tracks?
Sure. There are basically 4 categories to the game. There's all tracks, or 48 tracks, and then there's nitro tracks, retro tracks, and bonus tracks. Nitro is the first 16, retro is the old games, and then bonus tracks are all the DLC tracks from 8U, but they're all just provided in deluxe. Bonus tracks has the highest density of hard tricks in it and hard shortcuts. It's like extremely shortcut heavy and extremely difficult. And that just really appeals to me. Like I mentioned, I always like going for those like crazy hard strats, and optimizing that sort of thing, and the grind, and finding consistent ways to do these extremely hard things has been like a really big draw to stay in bonus tracks. Nitro tracks and retro tracks are not necessarily less difficult. It's that they aren't as skip heavy and shortcut focused. They're more about optimizing your lines as much as possible. And as much as I like that, skips are also incredibly appealing.
Yeah, as a viewer who isn't familiar with playing the game myself, having the 3 back to back, like if you made me vote, I would pick bonus tracks because it has the cool skips. Like, no brainer.
And with 48 tracks, like 48 tracks has everything. So you could say like, oh, that's awesome, it's got everything. But 48 tracks is an endurance category for us, because playing at that, like, Mario Kart 8's actually a very high APM game, if you think about it. Well, not APM, but like just like the amount of precision that it takes, and like how much you have to finagle the control stick and make sure it's in like a precise angle or anything like that, and being able to react. It's really hard to play at your peak for an hour and a half straight.
Now, when you're running the game, I have to assume you're probably using a Switch Pro controller, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody run with Joy-Cons?
Jacob ran with 2 Joy-Cons in the holder thing for a while, and honestly, it's totally fine. Like, it's mostly just a preference on the control stick. The Pro controller has a really, really good control stick, though.
Oh, yeah, no, the Switch Pro controller is a super nice controller.
Mm-hmm. Not great for ergonomics, and the shoulder buttons are a bit gummy.
Yeah, that part might be true, yeah.
But it's a great feeling controller. It's not good for your hands, but it feels good.
That's, I hadn't thought about it like that, because I think now that I'm thinking about it, I think I do agree with those assessments.
It's the handles. The handles on the Switch Pro controller are tiny.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger a controller's handles are, the better they are for your hands, because you're not gripping as tight. And the important thing that I've noticed from playing Mario Kart is when you're on your left hand, your hand curls inwards, like to the left. So if you have to move your thumb to the right, you're pulling your 4 fingers in one direction and your thumb in the other direction, and that's super, super bad for your hand.
All right. While we're here, I'm gonna do a quick tangent for some controller hot takes, since we're
totally,
here.
Definitely. Let's do it.
Best and worst controllers.
Ooh, best controller it's a tie between the PS4 controller and the Switch Pro controller. And the worst controller is probably either the DualShock 1 or DualShock 2.
Ooh, the DualShock 1 or the DualShock 2?
Yeah, I said it. And I have a reason why.
Please, I want to hear.
I think it's actually just the DualShock 2, not the DualShock 1. My boyfriend, Zeke Sikinar, runs Jack 2. And apparently, I never played PlayStation games. Apparently, the DualShock 2 and other PlayStation controllers, if you hold down the like X, circle, square, etc. harder, it does more, and that makes me really, really mad. I hate that. I hate that so much. It's such a bad thing for accessibility, because some people can't push down that hard, and that would be me. So I can't do some of the Jack 2 tricks.
Oh,
So
interesting.
I don't like controllers that make you push harder on the buttons.
So how do you feel about, okay, so obviously, when we're talking about that, of course, we're talking about the face buttons on the DualShock 2, which are, in fact, pressure sensitive, which was actually, recently I did a playthrough of Metal Gear Solid 2 on Xbox 360 with the HD collection, which was a real weird experience for me because I had played that game as a child on PS2 and was very used to how that game handles some things with pressure sensitive buttons. 360 controller doesn't have those.
Yeah. I'm sure if you grew up with a PS2 and grew up with pressure-sensitive buttons, that's totally great for you, but I never did, and to me, I just see it as, like, a failure in accessibility.
Sure, no, absolutely, and that part's important. Like, let's not joke around about that. Do you have similar thoughts in terms of... so, if I were to talk about things, I would talk about how I'm a big fan of the DualShock 1 and 2, specifically for the L2, R2 shoulder buttons, which are not triggers. I'm kind of, at this point, very annoyed with triggers that take a lot to depress. Do you have similar criticisms there with triggers?
That's tough. I'm holding my Switch Pro controller right now, and I like that these triggers don't require a lot either. You don't have to pull them down. They're more like buttons as well. And I do like that about that. However, I'm thinking about it, and Melee would be such a different game if the shoulder buttons weren't the way they are. So I really don't know.
No, that's fair. I mean, I some give, like, certainly, we're talking about Melee, so of course we're talking about the GameCube controller, and the amount of give on the shoulder buttons for that. I don't know, that the mechanical feel of the GameCube controller, like the shoulder buttons, everything about it, very unique controller to be sure. I don't know.
I put the GameCube controller, like, solidly in the middle of the pack as far as, like, controller feel goes.
The thing is, right now, I am not friends with the GameCube controller, and that is largely on account of the fact that I have been using the Game Boy player to do Game Boy Advance games on stream, and that means the D-pad, and that is probably the worst part of the GameCube controller.
Oh, definitely. Controller hot take.
Please.
We need more D buttons and less D-pads. That's not really a hot take, but controller makers need to learn this.
Do you have a favorite D-pad?
The Joy-Cons.
Oh yeah, interesting. Okay.
Because they're buttons. Because they're buttons. They're not a D-pad. They're just buttons.
See, the way you said buttons, I was wondering if maybe you would come out with one of the DualShocks, because honestly, that's something I do like about, like, recently I've been doing a lot
There's still a pad, though. There's still a pad underneath. They're
I
just
guess
separated.
you're right. It's not really separated.
Yeah. No, I really like the Joy-Cons D-pad. That's my favorite D-pad because they're 4 individual buttons.
Yeah, it's almost
but
like
I totally get why a pad has to be there so that you can't hold left and right at the same time. you just put some programming thing in there so that it's whatever button you press last is the one that it's inputting, and if you put them in at the same time, you just don't accept any input. That's how you fix it. Easy.
Right. I mean, at this point, you treat it much the way that you treat, for example, a hitbox, which is probably the more big example that we're thinking of in terms of using just individual buttons as part of directional buttons. But that's cool. No, that's fun. I'm glad that we went off in that tangent. I think, especially for anything where you're making repetitive motions, you begin to develop opinions about that kind of thing. Let's get some more. Well, let's go back to Mario Kart 8 DX, but let's continue in the search of good takes. Now, there's 16 tracks in bonus tracks, 4 cups. One thing I wanted to confirm, because I think I heard this during, it was either GD commentary or maybe one of your streams. In the GDQ run, the same racer, kart, wheels, glider configuration was used across the whole 48 track relay. And when I've watched you do just the bonus tracks category, you're still using that same configuration. I could have sworn I heard that for some individual tracks, the optimal configuration can differ. Is that right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the combination that we use for runs is kind of like just like the all around best thing if you average out builds. You're going for like as much acceleration as you can on kart pieces and like your roller tires, acceleration glider, bitty buggy, and then you get top speed from a heavyweight character, but you don't pick the heaviest character because you still want more mini turbo stats, so you drop down two weight classes for Roy, DK, Waluigi. Some people will drop down further and pick like Rosalina, King Boo, Link, or they'll pick the metal weight characters. And some people will go one step higher and pick Wario or Dry Bowser. Those are mostly preference options, but the fastest overall would be with Roy, Donkey Kong, Waluigi. On individual tracks, though, you start to get more specific, definitely. A good example is a retro track, Sherbet Land. That track is mostly ice and snow and has like very little traction. So they swap their car to something that has better traction, but still has a fairly high acceleration. I think they take the Mercedes-Benz Silver Arrow car, which was like a DLC thing, and they swap tires to something with better traction as well, either the wood tires or the leaf tires, I forget. And that's just one example. And Big Blue, which is in bonus tracks, the last track of the run, the time trial uses Bowser, the fastest character. And that's just a few examples. You might see people use different combinations online as well. If you drop down to 150cc instead of 200cc, then you get access to being able to use the Wild Wiggler cart in like an overall run. The Wild Wiggler has higher top speed, but a lot worse acceleration and mini turbo. Yeah, there's a bunch of different options, and that's really nice, but there is one best option, definitely.
So when it comes to, we've talked, I've said this a bunch of times now, bonus tracks, the focus. Do you find yourself ever focusing in on any of the individual tracks to the extent where you've practiced, for example, Bowser and Big Blue?
Yeah, for a while, I was running the Triforce Cup, which is Wario's Gold Mine, SNES Rainbow Road. What's the next one? Gosh, I'm forgetting the run that I do all the time. Ice Ice Outpost and Hyrule Circuit. For a while, I was using a heavier character. I was using Dry Bowser, because Wario's Gold Mine and Ice Ice Outpost have a lot of long straightaways. So when I was just doing the 4-track run, I felt like, well, I can use a heavier character because I have two tracks where I'm not drifting as much. I'm just going straight, and I can take advantage of a higher top speed. That's one example. For a while, like 2 years ago, I was using a lighter character for bonus tracks overall, and that's actually maybe coming back. Pianist 15, who has the record right now, is thinking that bonus tracks might be better with Rosalina than with Roy. So that's something that I might be testing in the future.
That's neat. That's actually really, really, it's, one of the things that's really cool about games that have, I would say like a high skill ceiling and a lot of options, right? We have a lot of racers and karts and wheels and all that, is that, things can shift. Like, if you look back at like fighting games often have this sort of history where the meta shifts in a big way over periods of time. And it's really cool to hear that when a speedrun does similar things.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the important bits of tech, when watching, for example, a bonus tracks run, is this thing that I think is called a no item shortcut. And I was really glad to have this explained to me in the commentary, because if you had asked, idiot me who hasn't played the game and just watching footage, I'd be like, oh, well, you could probably just do that normally without, any special consideration. You would just take the shortcut. If I were playing Mario Kart 8, I would simply take the shortcut. But it turns out that is not the case, and that, in some of these, in order to do them without an item, does require a particular approach in terms of maintaining the speed to clear the jump. And I wanted to ask, do you have a favorite or several favorites where you're just like, this is the cool stuff, and this is why I do bonus tracks?
Yeah, I do. I have a couple. One thing I want to touch on before that, with NISCs, 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 is the like one thing that we have to do a lot with it, and like the reason why we like can do these things without mushrooms is because there's like just the tiniest bit of leeway when you hit off-road. You can still release a drift boost, and so a lot of these NISCs are just drifting onto the off-road with the tiniest bit of air and then landing halfway through the grass already, using that tiny bit of leeway to boost and then getting through the rest of the off-road. And you would need a mushroom to do that otherwise. That's just the tiny explanation of how that works. But the two the two NISCs that I just love, that always get me, are Mute City Touchless and Wild Woods. Mute City Touchless it's at the very end of the lap. There is this like kind of downhill section that you do, and there's a shortcut that you can take if you know where it is, because it's pretty much blind. You have to know where it is, and you can use a mushroom, and then you hit this ramp, and then you hit a second ramp, and then you land, and it's a little bit faster than going all the way around and taking the path down normally. But if you release your mini turbo and jump at just the right angle with enough speed, you can jump over the ramp that you're supposed to trick off of. You can completely clear the off-road section before the ramp, and then just glide all the way down without hitting any of the ramps. And you maintain that speed from the mini turbo boost in the air, just all the way down with gravity. And it's super, super cool. And Touchless is really cool to me because it's a trick that I personally spent like 12 hours grinding out a consistent method to do in runs, because for a really long time it was something that was only done in time trials because of how difficult it was. But I spent a really long time figuring it out and figuring out where you needed to jump and making a consistent method for it. And that whole process was really, really fun the one time I did it. And then the other NISC is Wild Woods, and it is just a really fast skip. You take a bunch of boost plates, and then you trick off of a ramp, and then you use the boost from that trick plus just hopping in the air to clear a ramp, and then you land on the place that you're supposed to trick off of. And it is one of the least time-saving tricks in the run, and it is one of the most difficult tricks in the run. And it's on my favorite track, so I learned it, and it's just one of those, like, I just really enjoyed grinding it out.
No, that's cool. I'm glad sometimes I ask this kind of like, do you have like a favorite bit of tech sort of question? And sometimes I'm like, is this a good idea? But I'm really glad. It sounded like you really had, the two there you really wanted to highlight. So I'm glad I did that. Going forward, let's wrap up the Mario Kart 8 discussion. You already mentioned that there might be some character changes on the horizon in the future. Do you have any other particular plans for Mario Kart 8 DX going forward? And that could be, goal times for bonus tracks, other categories, or, things like that.
So right now I am a second and a half, 2 seconds off of the bonus tracks record. The bonus tracks record is a 27:29.7. And I have a 27:31.5. So I'm like 2 seconds off. So my goal right now is to get that record and maybe get sub 27:25. That would be cool. A 27:27 would also be really cool. After that, I plan to finally go back and look at my Nitro and Retro Tracks times, because they're significantly worse than my bonus tracks time. I've spent so much more time in bonus tracks that my skill in that category is just leagues better. And I always joke that I only have top 10 in 48 tracks because I got carried by my bonus tracks time.
Just to give people an idea of the level of optimization that we're dealing with. I think people can probably already guess that if like the difference between your PB and the record is 2 seconds. Do you know off the top of your head? Yeah, maybe where your summit best is or something?
Let me open Live Split right now. So, yeah. My personal best, 2731.5. World record, 2729.7. My sum of best is a 2718 flat. So if I get the record, it will be 10 seconds off of my sum of best or less.
That's
over
crazy.
a half an hour.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. I don't know.
But that's just how racing games work. They're designed to go fast, so these optimizations don't save that much time. They save tenths of seconds and frames, but they all add up over half an hour to be 10 seconds.
Right. Yeah. No, it's I think I'm so used to, the sort of games where you just, you walk into a wall, clip out of bounds and skip a level, like that kind of thing. Like, can you get the trick quickly? I think is more often the issue in my experience. But with a racing game, it's
can you get the trick or you're done.
Right. That's it. That's the level of optimization, which is cool. It's, I've as I said, I've enjoyed watching it. And so, certainly, it's worth checking out. Absolutely.
And that's why it's really fun and really important to find these like consistent methods to do these really hard things. On another example, on Ribbon Road, there are two ramps that are intended shortcuts that you can take, but on 200cc you're going too fast to take them. You can take one or you can take the other, but you can't take both. If on 200cc normally you're just going too fast. But if you know exactly what you're doing, and if you can hit the first ramp when you're already drifting, and like angle yourself, align yourself perfectly, and have good knowledge of the Ribbon Road cycles, you can hit both of the ramps. And if you're really good, you can even skip part of the second ramp and hit it at this like crazy angle. And the act of making that consistent has probably when it's finally done, and I'm not quite there yet. When it's finally done, I think it'll be an even bigger accomplishment for me personally than the Mute City trick that I talked about earlier.
That's cool. No, that's really. I think I'm really impressed by the extent to which. I already said this already, but the extent to which the run continues to develop based on searching for these kinds of optimizations, because I feel like I might be like, oh well, you just take the best line, right? Like that's simple. But no, I mean there's way more to it than that, as you've explained. I wanted to touch base now. Obviously, Mario Kart 8 DX is the big focus here. I did want to quickly touch base on your interest, because you haven't just speedrun Mario Kart 8 DX. You've also done some other things. And so quickly, I wanted to just sort of pick your brain on what moved you to do, in particular, I have watched other runners do the N64 era Mario Party games. And I feel like the GameCube era Mario Party games have a bad rep. I don't know if that rep is deserved. But I noticed that you've done speedruns of a few of the GameCube era Mario Party games. How did you come to do that? And just sort of what drew you to doing runs? So,
to touch on the, I don't think stigma is the right word, but to touch on the opinion that people have of the GameCube Mario Party games, I think a lot of it comes down to nostalgia, and a lot of people played the N64 Mario Parties growing up. And so that's the one that ends up being speedran. And there were a lot of changes with the GameCube ones. I never grew up with an N64, so I started my Mario Party experience with the GameCube ones, and so that's where the nostalgia is for me, I guess. And I find that they're fairly similar in terms of what they are. You can the N64 games are faster, just like the movement is faster, and the boards are way more complicated, and some people would say that the GameCube ones are a little overly complex or have too much randomness in them, and I'll agree with that for Mario Party 7 for sure. I don't exactly remember why I decided to start speedrunning them. Maybe because Pants speedran them. But I've done it a few times now, but just with friends occasionally, and some just by myself. And I don't know. I find them really fun. I don't think that there's anything wrong with the GameCube ones.
No, I mean, I have not. I grew up mostly as a PlayStation kid, so some of this stuff was really outside of my experience, and so that's why I'm skeptical, right? Like whenever I see a bunch of gamers show up and they're like, Mario Sunshine is bad, I'm like, well, I haven't played the game myself, so I don't know if I'm really going to believe you and take what you're saying at face value. And so that's why I'm curious to ask, because especially having played a lot of obscure games myself and streamed them, I always know that there is someone out there who likes that game and is going to show up in your Twitch chat and they're going to say it's their favorite game. And so based on that theory of things, I was curious to see, why it is that the GameCube games drew you in. Now, in this era of, your focus on Mario Kart 8, do you feel like you're going to return to any of these Mario Party games? So it certainly sounds like you enjoy them, but I'm just wondering, how do they fit in with what you're doing going forward?
So I've done one run of Mario Party 6, or at least I tried to, since the GDQ run, and it died to bad RNG, unfortunately. I think, for me, the Mario Party games are kind of like just a break from Mario Kart. Like, it's where all of the RNG in my speedrunning is, kind of. I joke about it like that. Like, this is where I get my RNG fix, and then we can go back to the no RNG grind fest for the next month. So no, I think for me, I'm not gonna stop running them. I'm just, I run them maybe like once every couple months. I don't know if you know Mr. Shasta, but Shasta and I, have ran, the 4 GameCube games back to back before as like a, quadfecta. Yeah.
That sounds like, how long does that take? What's the estimate?
I think it was 8 or 9 hours.
Okay.
It was a lot of fun. I ordered pizza.
Cool. I mean, honestly, that's one of the things that
honestly,
go ahead.
Mario Party is an excuse. Mario Party speedrunning is an excuse to order pizza.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, I think as I talk to more, runners who are often by nature of me finding them, probably streamers as well. One of the things I'm seeing is that grinding for top times is cool and it owns and we all love it. But also, if we're going to stream that much, you need to do other things. And I think you already said as much that, Mario Party can be that kind of RNG change of pace, but also that does mean, integrating it in other ways. And, as you mentioned, that's, socially doing it with other runners, eating is important. So doing that as well.
No, I've been trying to like kind of move towards that. I think I kind of get what you're saying there. Like for my streams, I've been doing Mario Kart for 3, 4, 5 hours if I'm lucky. And then after that, I'll play another game after that. Sometimes it's Hyrule Warriors, sometimes it's Hades. I wasn't sure if you were going to bring those up or not. So
no, I mean, I think I decided to focus on Mario Party because I feel like, I don't know, with Hades, that game just came out, and a lot of games critics that I follow, like I'm big into like Waypoint Radio and stuff like that. Like a lot of them are just gushing over Hades. Yeah. So, and
there are other people who are a lot better at that game than me.
Right. Yeah, in terms of running it. But like also, sometimes, you can have games that you don't have to be a top runner at for sure. But I mean, it's good to have that. I think what you're saying where you have this different sort of game. I know a lot of the horror runners I spoke to, will do like marathons where the focus is kind of removed from the PB and they can play the same games, but they can do it, with less of a concern about PBing in an individual game. And so I guess that's sort of, maybe that's the point of this is the advice to runners who may be listening is that, it's okay to sort of come up with other ways to engage with speedrunning that isn't just getting the PB.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I couldn't possibly just grind for PB in this game. I think I probably compare against personal best less than I compare against average tracks. I prefer to compare against average and prefer to just run for consistency's sake a lot of the time, because grinding and resetting it's mentally taxing. And I think what you mentioned with the horror game runners, that's like a really great privilege that they have for running multiple games, is being able to do sort of like marathon style things like that. And I've tried to do something similar with that. Like every once in a while, I'll set like an endurance challenge for myself, like 10 no resets of bonus tracks, which I think is I have 10 all tracks on my backlog, but I'm gonna get into all tracks a little bit and get better at Nitro and Retro before I try to tackle that. That's gonna be an event.
Yeah, no, but I mean, also that's still I feel like even with all tracks, you mentioned that's an endurance run because you still have such a high density of input.
Yeah, so definitely going for PB every day is not sustainable in my opinion, or at least in practice for me. It might be different for some other people. Everybody is different.
Sure, yeah, and again, it's always going to be like everything in speedrunning. It's going to be on a case by case basis based on the the game and the runner. All right, let's start to wind this down. Let's get to sort of the exit stuff. One of the things I do in this interview series is get a question from my previous guest for my next guest and carry the chain forward from there. My previous guest was the Portal and Celeste runner M Sushi. Usually I ask for a gaming and speedrunning question. M Sushi called my bluff and said, like, no, ask your next guest, what is their favorite genre of music?
Ooh. Thank you, M Sushi. That's so hard, because music is one of my big hobbies. My only tattoo is music related. My favorite music genre is progressive rock, progressive metal.
Cool.
I like my noodly guitars.
Mm-hmm. Would you cite any particular examples, either artists, songs?
Oh yeah. Check out the band Polyphia. Check out Animals as Leaders, and gosh, there's a lot of really great bands. Covet is a great band, but they're a little bit more math rock-y. I like noodly guitars. Noodly guitars are just very fun. And on the electronic music side of things, I've been really getting into Camellia lately, which is just like really heavy, fast blast beats and 200 BPM dubstep, which has been also very fun to get into.
Yeah, no, I hear that. That's honestly, like, of course, enjoy your favorite stuff, but also sometimes just discovering new things is really good. I think for me, the past few years, a few years ago, a friend of mine sent me a Future Funk album, and I have not recovered from that yet. Still,
yeah, love some deep round bass.
Yeah.
I also like some good funk.
Yeah.
Love me some good funk. Wolfpack is great. I don't know if you know Wolfpack.
Yeah, no, they're good. They're really good. All right, so that does mean, though, that I do need from you, for my next guest, who is a speedrunner, and you don't know who they are, I do, though. But a general question, gaming, speedrunning. I usually recommend gaming, speedrunner related. I guess maybe now I should broaden it to say a question that you would have for a speedrunner.
The doors have been busted wide open now. Okay. So, M Sushi asked me favorite genre of music. So, ask your next guest their favorite genre of movie.
Okay. No, we're doing that. That's actually going to be... I'm really excited for that. I'm gonna, I don't know, maybe you'll recognize this name. I'm gonna put it in the DM.
Sure.
For a guest who's listening, this was someone else who also had a run at this past GDQ event. I'm very excited to talk to them. That, of course, will be next week's episode. All right, so right now, I always, as a good exit question, looking towards the future, are there any upcoming new games that you've been watching and that you're potentially excited to play?
Well, I've already mentioned Hades. That one's out. I think as far as new games on the horizon, I'm getting really, really excited for Hollow Knight Silksong. Can't wait for that to get a release date tied to it. That'll be awesome. And gosh, Hades. Hades is so fun. I've just been playing so much Hades. I
everything
can't.
is Hades right now. I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Definitely been fun.
There are a couple other roguelikes that have come out recently that I want to check out that I haven't had the time to check out yet. One of them is called Nova Drift. It is a 2D bullet hell sort of roguelike. It has the same difficulty system that Hades does, and it has the same pick one out of 3 options that Hades has. So I'm interested in that game, but I haven't picked it up. That's called Nova Drift. And then the other game that I was interested in, I forget the name of it. It was about like working. It had this really bright pastel aesthetic. Shoot. Nope, I got nothing.
All right. Well, it is
Sorry.
real. It is real. I'm sure the
Yes.
game is real, and it can hurt you if it is found. Let's. I feel like maybe we're both running out of steam here, so
Yeah.
let's get to the end. Where should people what are the projects people should be looking for? Where should they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch, Amber_CXC, and on YouTube, AmberCXC without the underscore.
And of course, the links to all
yeah.
those will be in the video or podcast description, and as well as links to some of the videos that we discussed, the Ars Technica video, the GDQ 2020 video as well, which is really worth. Again, if you're like, well, I can't just dive into watching someone stream attempts, and you want to know some of what's going on in terms of mini turbos, NIST, things like that. That's a really good way to get caught up as a viewer. Amber, thank you so much for sharing this time with me.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
But I do need one more thing. The way that I like to end these podcasts is that I'm going to use a hopelessly cheesy catchphrase, like "let's boost on out of here." And then when I say that, I need you to give me your best rocket engine noise.
Oh no.
Are you ready?
What sound is that?
So like like a rocket
I'll just
taking
try.
off,
I'll just
right?
try.
Yeah, just
Okay. Okay, let's just go for it.
folks, thank you so much for listening. Let's boost on out of here.